One of the most common challenges that I see in my work is this struggle with self-love. A lot of clients and students will ask me, how do I love myself? And this question reflects a really deep yearning for wholeness, but from the non-dual tantric perspective, it also reveals a really fundamental misunderstanding of our true nature. So in this video, what I'm going to do is share the non-dual tantric approach to self-love and why it's about so much more than just learning to accept yourself. It's really about awakening to the truth of who you really are. So if you've ever struggled with feeling unlovable or unworthy of love, then this video is for you. Hey there, yogis and yoginis. I'm Lisa Engles and welcome to my channel where I help spiritual seekers just like you to harness the ancient wisdom of yoga to live an extraordinary life. And the goal of my channel is really simple. It's just to make it easier than ever before for anyone to find happiness and fulfillment in their life by using what has already been passed down to us for millennia. So before we dive into today's topic, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I put out videos just like this one on a regular basis and you wouldn't want to miss any of these videos. So don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so you never miss an update. All right. So what I want to do is start by examining why this question, how do I love myself, can actually be misleading. When we ask this question, it's often coming from this place that in personal development might be called an unhealed wound or a core wound. And in the world of personal development, this belief that we're unlovable or that we're unworthy of love is often seen as something that needs to be healed or it needs to be fixed. But from the non-dual tantric perspective, this isn't a wound at all. It's just a misunderstanding. So think back maybe to when you were like 5 or 6 years old and you did something that maybe got your mom or your dad mad, right? Maybe they were stressed out or distracted at the time, and in that moment, they said something really harsh to you or dismissive to you, like, you're always causing trouble, or why can't you just behave? So as a little 5 or 6 year old, this experience is deeply painful and it's too overwhelming to fully process. So instead of feeling the hurt because it's so overwhelming, you do two things. You tell yourself, oh my gosh, there must be something inherently wrong with me. Otherwise, why would my mom or my dad be so mad at me? And this may be interpreted by the younger you as I'm not lovable. And then number 2, you avoid the pain of that experience, and you do that by pushing it down. You push it away so that you don't have to face it, so that you don't have to feel it. And this creates what in yoga is known as a samskara, or an impression in your psyche. Then what happens is as you grow older, every time something happens that remotely echoes that childhood experience, like, I don't know, maybe when a friend cancels plans on you last minute or someone criticizes you at work, that same buried story, that thought and emotion, it resurfaces, and it's just as painful as it was when you first experienced it as a little 5 or 6 year old child. You might not even consciously remember that original incident, but that samskara, that impression, is still there, and it's influencing your thoughts and your reactions. And the thought, I'm not lovable, gets triggered and it gets reinforced, making it feel more and more and more true every time. So now let's circle back to this concept of the misunderstanding. What is this misunderstanding anyway? Well, in tantric tradition, it's a misunderstanding of your true nature, and it's what perpetuates this sense of not being whole and complete as you already are. So here's what happens. As the thought, I'm not lovable, resurfaces, there's simultaneously a very deep inner knowing that that thought isn't actually true. And this creates this dissonance. It's this inner conflict or tension between what you intuitively sense to be true about yourself and what you've come to believe based on your misinterpretation of yourself, again, based on this past experience or experiences. And this tension, right, it's one of the things that causes and perpetuates the experience of dissatisfaction and frustration and anger in your life. Okay, so at this point, you might be thinking, well, I sure don't feel like I know that I'm whole and complete. In fact, that thought has never crossed my mind, Lisa. And that's exactly the point. The thought, I'm not lovable, is just that. It's a thought. But the intuitive, that deep intuitive knowing that I am whole and complete isn't a thought at all. It's a direct lived experience. And the problem is that you've believed the thought, I'm not lovable, for so long, since you were, 5 or 6, or maybe even younger than that, that it's become a part of your identity. And this false identification has caused you to forget your true nature. It's like an actor who takes on a role and gets so immersed in that role that they forget that they're acting. And this is something that Rupert Spira often uses as an analogy. He says, imagine John, the actor, is playing the role of King Lear. And over time, John becomes so identified with the character that he forgets that he's actually John. And he starts to believe that he's King Lear, and he adopts all of King Lear's traits and puts on the costume and loses sight of his true self, John. So in the same way, when you identify with a thought like, I'm not lovable, it's as if at the age of 5 or 6, you actually put on that thought like a costume. And because you've worn this costume for so long, you've forgotten that that's not who you really are. So now we return to this question of, how do I love myself? So the first step is to recognize the fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of this question, the belief that you aren't lovable. So this isn't a wound, it's a misunderstanding. And for this process to work, you have to begin by recognizing that this is simply a thought, and that thoughts are tools, they're not truths. Now, if this is new to you, it's likely that competing thoughts are going to arise for you, like, but I did this and that makes me unlovable, or my own parent didn't love me and so that must mean that I'm unlovable. Now, again, these are just thoughts, and thoughts are tools, not truths. And in this practice, what we do is we start by recognizing that if a thought isn't beneficial to our growth or to your growth, then you have the power to let it go. It's just like a screwdriver isn't a useful tool for nailing a nail. Not every thought is useful for your spiritual growth. So this first step is identifying the thought. In this case, I'm not lovable. Once you've identified it, open yourself to the possibility that this thought is simply a misunderstanding of who you really are. Just recognizing this can be incredibly freeing. Think about the implications of it. If I'm not lovable is a misunderstanding, then you don't have to beat yourself up every time you make a mistake. If it's a misunderstanding, then you don't have to feel anxious about maybe going into a social situation and feeling like you're being judged. Now, the second step is to start questioning the assumptions that you've built around this thought. For example, when you believe I'm not lovable, and then a friend cancels plans at the last minute, you might automatically assume that they don't really like you, that they don't respect you, or that they only care about themselves. But these assumptions are built on the misunderstanding, I'm not lovable. All right. So the third step is to investigate where this thought is located. Does it feel like it's in your head or in your chest or in your belly? Wherever you think it's located, allow your attention to move there and then investigate really closely to see if you can actually find the thought. And what you'll likely discover is that you can't find it. It doesn't exist as a tangible reality. And this realization can initially bring feelings of confusion and frustration or even disbelief because you've held on to this thought for so long that it's become part of your identity. But this discomfort, initial discomfort, is actually part of the process of dismantling your constructed identity. And as you begin to see that the thought, I'm not lovable, doesn't hold up under your investigation, under your scrutiny, something really profound starts to happen. The grip that this thought has had on you, it begins to loosen, and you start to notice that without this thought, there's actually this sense of space and freedom. And you might even begin to get glimpses of your true nature as whole and complete and beyond any label or belief. So this is just the beginning. Remember, like an actor playing a role, the thought, I'm not lovable, it doesn't define or describe who you really are. Just like John is John, like Rupert Sawyer says, not King Lear. You're not your thoughts, and your thoughts don't define or describe who you really are. So this does require a lot of patience and practice and a willingness to continually return to this investigation. And each time this thought arises, it is an opportunity to recognize that it is just a thought. It's a misunderstanding. It's not the truth of who you really are. So the next step in this journey is to cultivate awareness in your daily life. You can start to notice when these thoughts and assumptions arise. Instead of getting caught up in them, you can use them as a signal to return to right now, to this present moment. Ground yourself in your direct experience of what's happening right now, rather than getting lost in the story that your mind is telling you. And this practice of regrouping, reorganizing in the present moment is key to embodying the understanding that you're not your thoughts. You are the awareness within which all thoughts arise and subside. Now, this work is essential, but it's really only half of the process. So be sure to watch the second video in this two-part series, because I'm going to be guiding you through the second and equally important part of this journey, which is working with the body and the sensations that arise when these thoughts surface. So here's the thing. It's not enough to recognize the thought as a misunderstanding. You also have to address the somatic responses that have become enmeshed or intertwined with these thoughts, with these beliefs. So by working with both the cognitive, the thoughts, right, and the somatic aspects, you begin to really embody the understanding of your true nature as free and whole and complete. Thank you so much for joining me. If you found this video helpful, please do give it a like. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I always answer them. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more insights, for more videos and guidance on your spiritual journey. Until next time, take care and namaste.